We are live. So, welcome everybody. This is the weekly podcast that we do. Co host here is Future Raza, Brian White. We got Investing Against the Grain, Nick Gibbs. This week is pretty big. We had a drop last night, right? Tesla AI shared that all the cars coming out of the Fremont factory, anyways, when they come out, they take a 1.2 mile route and they're driving on their own. Teslas now drive themselves from their birthplace at the factory to their designated loading dock lanes without human intervention, one step closer to large scale unsupervised FSD. You've got Elon Musk saying unsupervised full self driving begins. And you got Ashok saying just a matter of time before it's rolling out on public roads. Elon says, indeed. You know, that what I've been hearing, this comes out. Tesla investors like us, people who have been following the company closely, we see this as a big deal. We recognize it's a small step, but we also think that it's a big deal. But there's others coming out and saying, yeah, it's just smart summon in a parking lot. This means nothing. It's it's a nothing burger. What did you guys think?
It's just smart summon in a parking lot, moving the car from A to B without intervention, without supervision is just smart summon. That's dishonest. That's, it'll never happen, Herbert. It'll never happen. Man will not have powered flight for 10 million years. We're watching it. We're seeing the benefit. The forklift still has a meat driver. That's next. We're going to get past all that. Yeah, it's crazy talk. Nick, what do you think?
Nick? Yeah. No comment from Nick. He's frozen. He's frozen. But look at this lineup of cars driving themselves. Brian, do you think that that's the way it's going to be, or they just did that for effect?
I think that, why wouldn't it? If it works, it works. Use it. You've got yeah. How many positions will this remove? This is not, by the way, we're not talking about destroying jobs. Yes.
That's a Tesla Semi, somebody pointed out.
Yeah. This is not destroying jobs. This is freeing up those people to do something that is more uniquely human and beneficial. If your job was to poke a button all day, you'd say, couldn't we automate this? And that's the first thing you do. That's, I think, one of the first things Edison did, because he was a telegraph relay operator, was created a system that would automatically relay it so he could sleep.
Brian, what's the impact to cost of goods? You worked this out, didn't you?
Sure. Well, I ran it a couple different ways. If we just figure 4 minutes per delivery, that would get you somewhere around $6 million a year if they're doing it at all 4 factories, based on rate of pay of around $50,000. Now, these are not $50,000 jobs, but once you factor in benefits and recruiting and vacation, $50,000 is a good low estimate. But it's not really 4 minutes a car. It's probably closer to 8 minutes a car, which would get you at 2 million units of production, $1 million a month in savings, which is only $6 a car. That's very doable. Great. So now my margins increase by $6. Big deal. Right. It doesn't make sense if you're only making a few hundred cars. No one would do it. Just pay a driver. But if you're doing millions, which they are, and they plan to increase that number, it makes perfect sense. And if they're going to be making cybercabs, this is software they already need. The biggest takeaway here, and I didn't mention it on my show this morning because I hadn't realized it yet, is that this means that version 13 has all the pieces it needs. They could have done this years ago if they wanted to create a fork in the software just for factory relocation, just for this particular use case, and they refused to. They could have made a fork just for boring tunnel. They refused to. Version 13 is what everyone saw on 1010 in the Cybercab. It didn't have a fork for Universal, or for the Universal lot, not Universal, the Warner Brothers lot. What it had was a skin that just goes right on top of whatever's underneath it. So it can now be presumably rolled out to all the factories and maybe also to the boring tunnel.
Nick's not talking today. All right.
I was just listening. So yeah, I think I was listening to the Fed stuff, so apologies. But I think someone said that this isn't a big deal? That this is just summoned or some.
Hmm.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's do you like to contextualize it? This is part of the manufacturing line. If anything happens, it backs everything else up. Like this is like that's a really big risk to just throw out there if this was just summon, smart summon or whatever. Like this is to me this is a huge deal. And Brian, to your point, like I don't know if so I used to work with a lot of what they're called ro-ro ships, roll on, roll off car carriers. And the way those work is you'll have people driving the vehicles onto the ships, and then you'll have like a little minivan where like 15 people pile into it to drive back to get to the next cars. And it's like this just weird loop that happens, and you don't have any of that. You don't have people getting in the car, potentially dinging the door, potentially dirtying it. Like it's like you de-risk in so many different ways. That's like one of the biggest issues with vehicles on ships is that people getting in and out and they start dinging stuff. Like this is a big deal. Like that they're willing to do that in like this is in production. Like when you put software into production, that's a big deal. They're literally doing this on the assembly line, going right off. Like I think this is a really big deal, and I've been saying that I think today could be you know something interesting being said. I don't know why. I feel like that today is going to be. I don't know. I might say the same kind of crap every quarter. I don't know, but it just seems like this is a precursor to something that they want to tell us. So
Yeah,
I'm pretty bullish.
I want to add to what you're saying, Nick. That is actually a very good point. If you want to argue this isn't big for FSD, you would have to then argue that it is big for assembly line processes. If what this has done is just made the assembly line 1 mile longer before humans get involved, that is a big deal. Now, people don't get excited about factory improvements the way perhaps the viewers of this show might. Viewers of this show are a little deeper in the weeds than the average person, but it's absolutely a big deal. And again, if you can save $1 million a month, do you know what you would pay a consultant to save you $1 million a month? And this isn't something they had to develop specially. This is something they're developing anyway that happens to have that benefit. So yeah, I think that presents some interesting perspective.
yeah. So in addition to, this, what you just said, which is this is the first time that this company, Tesla, is actually implementing it in the production and delivery process. They wouldn't do that unless it's fast enough, it's more efficient, costs better. So that shows you there's that. But okay, name me another car company that is actually doing something like this. Car comes out and it drives itself to the parking lot.
Nissan did it. Nissan did it in 2016, but they did it the wrong way. We were just talking about how Tesla refused to create a separate software fork. Nissan did. They had a self-driving program they were working on, and rather than finishing it, they said, can we implement it today at the factory? And for about a year, they had this program where they would get shuttled over to the wharf semi-autonomously. Maybe they were being pulled by other vehicles that were autonomous, but it didn't work. It didn't work, and we haven't heard of it in 8 years.
Okay. Well, 8 years ago, right? So it's more of a pilot. Name me any other company with any other product that after the product was built is actually going to drive itself, walk itself, take itself to the actual distribution path. Anyways, it's a big deal. It's a first step, small step, but it's these small steps that keep adding up to finally something important. So why did you guys think that they actually talked about it today, bring it up before the earnings call? Why was that happening? Nothing. It was just ready. Somebody pointed out, by the way.
I do believe in coincidences, but this does not appear to be one to me.
If you take a look at these, somebody pointed out to me in the show I did this morning, these are all the older cars, not the new ones. So maybe this was videotaped a while back.
I'll have to go back and look at some drone footage.
No, that's new. That's newer. Look at the lights.
Yeah,
which true. One?
Look at the lights on it.
The interior lights, he means, the RGBs. But do we know if that was a 3 or Y? I couldn't tell from that clip.
Oh, no, but that would mean it's newer.
But that's an old school Y right there.
Yeah, but they haven't started production of the new Ys.
Oh, Fremont has. They've
Have it?
I've seen a Fremont build in person. There is the other thing on row ships that you were saying, Nick. That's great. Is, as you know, and you guys can watch footage of it. They drive in a batch of cars. A bunch of dudes hop out of the cars, latch them down, hop in the shuttle, go back out, grab the next batch of cars. It's a very labor intensive thing. Instead, what they could do is have them show up, and the guy just stays in there, latching, securing them down, and yeah, no more shuttles. The only labor is to secure each vehicle. And if you get to the point where an Optimus is doing it, not only could they secure the vehicle, not only could they measure the torque on each ratchet for each wheel, but then they could record it and audit it for later.
Yeah, it's crazy as it sounds. I remember we were in Southampton, England once, and they didn't have the port didn't have enough people to drive the vehicles on, so they started taking people off the street to go and try to drive the vehicles on
Yeah.
because otherwise everything starts backing up. The ships have to go out. There's other ships that are coming in for that slip, and it creates this whole issue. And the ships don't want delays on leaving. Like, forget about the port doesn't want it because they have a schedule to maintain. But the ships, when they leave, they don't want to be rushed because now that means that they have to go faster, which means that they burn more fuel, which fuel is the second highest cost in any vessel after humans. So it's like this whole domino effect that happens that backs everything up. So to remove that variable when it for ports, for ships, for I mean, it's pretty wild if it can get to where this is just the norm for vehicles.
And the ships are scheduled years out in many cases. The schedule is very tight, port to port to port. And so, yeah, if you fall behind, the only alternative is put it in high gear and lose efficiency, i.e. money.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was good. It was fun. Hearing
Wait,
the confidence of Ashok, right? I mean, him saying this, he said, just a matter of time before it's rolling out on public roads. I think that this is him saying this today. It's a really big vote of confidence that there's confidence that it's happening. It's going to happen.
Herbert, why do you think they released it today?
You know, I go back and forth on this, right? So let's say if the earnings is actually really good and they're about to say something great about bots, they're about to show you something new about FSD, this gets everybody very excited before that. But it could also be the other way. If earnings is bad, they expect something, negative. They want to say something good at the beginning here to kind of soften the blow. So I kind of fell in the, I have no idea why they did it last night versus waiting until after the call or doing it a week before.
So I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. My best friend, Greg, he's also a really big Tesla investor. Um, he sent me a text this morning when I
Hmm.
was in the car. Um, he said he sent me a text saying it's weird. I've never seen Tesla um, news the way I'm seeing today before the earnings. Gave him a call, just like understand, like, what are you talking about?
Hmm.
And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm looking on Apple News, and like the articles are saying like today's earnings isn't about the numbers, but about the story that gets told. And he was talking about how like it's like everything's like almost in a positive spin, like dismissing the numbers. He's like, I've never seen that.
All
I was
right,
like,
that's
that's
true.
so interesting. I've never seen that
Hmm.
either, but that's so true. So I don't know. I think it's just interesting. It almost feels like I mentioned this, God, what was it, like a year ago now, Herbert, where I was talking about how I think that there's a paradigm shift in based on what the analysts are going to be asking, and that we're going to start talking about AI and robots. And sure enough, that happened. And you've just seen that accelerate. It'll be interesting to see if there's yet again another shift where people start just dismissing the numbers altogether. I mean, I think we've kind of seen that a little bit, but if it really becomes where people dismiss it, they understand. Look, vehicle market is cyclical. It's going to do what it does, but how close are we to the actual good stuff, to the actual FSD out on roads? When do we start deploying? When do robots start getting built? Like it seems like Wall Street's like starting to salivate a little bit. Like, all right, we're in this 6 to 12 month window that we love and we live in, and I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to hear what they ask.
Yep. Uh, no, I mean AI. The thing I was thinking about yesterday, similar train of thought you were, is that Tesla's been saying, right? Elon's been saying Tesla is an AI robotics company, and every time he's trying to repeat that. Here you've got an example of an AI robotics company. These cars driving themselves, and then just earlier today too, you had this guy Yun Tasai, who works at Tesla AI.
Oh, yeah. He's
He
great.
said this morning, having your best AI talents have direct access to the factories is a unique opportunity that hardly anyone has. It grounds you to the reality how to achieve great things at scale. So he's at Tesla AI, and he's basically saying that they have direct access to the factories. And so I said, sounds like Tesla AI goes way beyond just cars and bots, such a big playground to play in. And he said, getting factory running smoothly is everyone's responsibility. So that seems like a confirmation from a Tesla AI team member saying that we are working and using AI to actually improve the factory itself. So here we see a visual of a car driving itself to improve cost, time, efficiency, right? All these cars, as soon as they get out, it goes away. Also, Asha Goswami today confirmed, didn't he, that he said that this guy asked the question, don't the cameras need to be calibrated first? So typically, when you have when you get your car today, you get an FSD, but you buy a brand new Tesla, you would need to drive it around for several miles before the cameras are calibrated before you can then actually use FSD. Well, what they apparently did, according to Ashok, is calibration is now done automatically as the vehicle moves through the manufacturing line. So that means that I thought that maybe the parking into the parking lot was the way to train it. But actually, in order to do that, in order to use FSD, unsupervised FSD, to drive it right as soon as it's coming out of the factory, they needed to have calibrated it as it moves along the manufacturing line. So here you've got confirmation from top Tesla executives basically saying that we are using AI, not only here's the AI, here's a robotic car, but we're using it throughout the factory. And so while many people are like waiting for these visuals, I can't wait till they got a bot and the Optimus bot is walking around. That's when Tesla's an AI company. They're an AI company today and they're using it now. And I was talking to Jeff Lutz about it, and he was like, he listed out, 8 things that Tesla AI can do to improve the factory. One example is quality assurance, right? And then reducing errors. And then even inventing new ways to do something faster, right? So here's the largest AI company in the world with the largest manufacturing factories in the world using actual AI for an actual business, So it's like people are missing this, completely missing this. And then if let's say GM then somehow gets an AI team, by the time they even do something like this, Tesla's just so far ahead. It's like it's. I mean, no, they'll never do it. But let's say another company does. They're so far ahead of anybody. I would argue any of the Mag 7s. What's Microsoft doing with AI? They're trying to improve your ability to use Word and Excel and PowerPoint.
Oh.
I mean, yes, it's good, but
It's
get an extra $20 a month. Get an extra $20 from me, right? What is it?
I need Clippy 3.0 to run my Microsoft.
I mean, we don't want to, whatever, underestimate what they can do with it because we don't know yet. They can reinvent law. They can reinvent healthcare, sure. But which AI company is actually using it in their actual business today?
Is it going to replace a lawyer?
I mean, you could, right? Eventually, over time. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
No.
That's another conversation you and I need to have.
The laws are written by lawyers, and lawyers won't draft that law.
No, that's a done deal, guys.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know too many people who will weep for the loss of attorney as a profession, but it'd be. Who knows?
Yeah. So back to what happens, I hope that they will focus on Tesla as an AI company and that's the whole story, and they show all the ways. And this is one example. That's why they showed it today. So I guess one way is that you can't actually show this during the call itself. You want to show it ahead of time, right? And by the way, just a quick comment you made earlier, Brian, when the Cybercab comes out, let's say next year, mass production 2026, it won't have steering wheels, it won't have brake pedals. You can't have your current situation where you have humans coming in to drive it into the docking lane. So they
Comes
had
out
to
this
have
year.
done this already. What's that?
Comes out this year.
Well, what do you mean it comes out this year? I just double checked everything last night and it said this production is in 2026. I mean, they'll make small batches for sure. You can see them already being tested. I'm not saying, but what do you mean by it comes out this year?
Volume production is 2026.
Right. So then what
What
numbers
happens
are you
before
thinking?
volume production?
So how many you're talking about? Thousands?
I don't know. Production starts this year. You'll see.
Yeah, no. I agree with you. I'm just a question of, how many. I asked this question to a group of people yesterday,
Production
right?
starts this year.
In the robo-taxi, commercialized robo-taxi pilot program that's going to launch hopefully this year, commercialized, they're going to have Model Ys. Are they going to be using cybercabs? Could there be a few cybercabs there? And everybody on the call on the space said no, 0 chance. And I'm like,
And I say
how come?
yes.
Love it. And the
So,
reason why you might not be able to is because you have to get a regulatory approval for a steering wheel-less, kind of new vehicle.
It depends. It depends. I've seen people say this will never happen in California because it doesn't have a steering wheel. So I dug into the regulations, and that is not a regulation. There are policies in place that would permit a wheelless vehicle in California already, which makes sense. I think Zoox has been testing in California. So we know that it can be done. I don't know why people would think it couldn't. There are one of the things we're seeing in Washington, we've got this new Senate bill that wants to put rules on car dealerships that say they can't gouge the little dealer in favor of the big dealer. None of this promotional pricing for volume, all that. Great. Oh, and also no direct sales. And they don't say no direct sales, but that's the effect of what they're saying. And this is, to protect the little guy. But what it also means is someone in our Northwest group on a private group on X was saying, this looks like it may make it impossible for Tesla to own the Cybercab network in Washington state. And if that's what's going to happen, if that's something that any state does, make it impossible for a manufacturer to also own a robo-taxi network, what that means is that state is going to have a bad experience for their residents, their commuters, their consumers, and the neighboring states are going to do better. And I'll tell you, if I'm retired and need mobility and I'm in a state that doesn't allow me to easily get where I need to go, I will consider moving, because that's ridiculous. That's insanity. So
Even more important, you'll vote other people in.
I'm one vote. If my one vote is insufficient, people will. I hope that enough people, I don't believe in single issue voting, but if the single issue is one that critically impacts my ability to function as a human, I'm going to do that. Yeah. So
I think you just look at what happened with Uber, right? The taxi lobbyists fought really hard to try to prevent Uber from operating, and then they eventually failed because why? Because consumers wanted lower priced options, and that's.
I'll tell you though, there's a critical difference in that state legislatures are not only affected by dealer lobby groups, they're also infiltrated by them. You will find people who own multiple car dealerships on every state legislature because they're the kind of people with the money and time to take a job like that, and they exert their influence. There's way more money in the dealer and manufacturing lobbies than there is in taxis. Yeah, I
agree. The dealers' lobbies are usually the richest people in any state is a dealer, so they're powerful. Yeah, and they're the ones promoting this, right? Trying to prevent Tesla from coming in or being able to sell these cars.
So one thing we saw in the news yesterday, I was hoping we could touch on, is General Motors has announced they are gross margin positive on EVs now, and this is without tremendous volume. It's good volume, but not tremendous volume. And this includes apparently the vehicles that they manufacture on behalf of Honda and Acura, which presumably Honda and Acura are selling at a positive margin as well. Does this, I consider this good news for the industry. I wanted to hear your guys' take on it.
I consider it fake news
Yeah.
How?
because they're excluding the cost it takes for the manufacturing lines. Like it's
Well,
magic
no,
math that
gross
they're doing.
margin. No, it's gross margin. They are positive on a per unit basis, which means sell more units. The When you're losing money on every vehicle sold, the best way to lose less money is to make and sell fewer cars, which is something these guys have been historically very good at. They can sell fewer cars like nobody's business. But now that they're gross margin positive, they have the opportunity to expand, to sell more, to reduce their cost of goods sold, and start chipping away at the net margin.
Yeah, I guess we have to look at what's going on, because if you inventory, because they're obviously selling it to dealers,
The
and
dealerships, yeah.
inventory days have been going up. So unless they can show us that inventory days have started to fall because they're able to sell more, great. But if the inventory days are going up and then they show you gross margin positive, it's like kind of just hiding things around for now. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right.
Hopefully it's true,
It,
like you said.
yeah, I think we all like read that headline and all that, and we're like, why does it feel like it's not worded right or like worded very? You could tell that the wording of it was so intentional. That was like, what are we hiding here? And it just, I don't know.
It
Some things
depends
just
on
don't
which
smell right.
It depends on which headline you saw, because there were a variety of them. The one I saw, at least, I felt was reasonably clear and accurate. But again, we're pretty far into the weeds, so it may have been that I was able to decode it.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen. I don't trust GM. I think they make horrible investment decisions. I think that they try to manipulate things. I think they try to do things for headlines. Um, I think this is all a shell game. I don't buy it. And
I'm going to say,
it's not even my own bias necessarily. It's their actions over and over and over have led me to be skeptical rather than giving them the benefit of the doubt.
I'm going to tell you exactly why I agree with you. Is it might have been 2 or 3 years ago now. They had this big and exciting day where we're talking about the future and electrification. And I read through that presentation. I was like, this whole thing is snake oil. It is a bubbling cauldron of snake oil. And how are you not getting sued for these obvious lies? Do we wait 2 years to see that none of them came true? And it had a picture of, their electric skateboard, and it's all
Yes, I remember
Ultium.
that
And
so well.
I mean, it was, the thing is, just looking at it, I was like, this is bogus. This is bogus. And of course, now in hindsight, everyone can see it was. Where's the lawsuit? Is that not an illegal manipulation of your stock value to make a presentation that is false?
And to
Guys,
be well, I just want to be real quick. I just want to be intellectually honest here or consistent because I think Brian just said that so well. And I imagine people, well, they're probably not watching your channel. If they are, they're weird if they're anti-Tesla, whatever. But I'm sure there's still some people who are like, yeah, guys, Elon sometimes says some stuff. Um, but I would say Elon actually doesn't. Like all this, there's a lot of narrative about like the things Elon says. Elon will get asked questions, and I'll say, yeah, I think by this time, this date, we can do this or that, and it's like he's forecasting what he thinks could be based on what he knows. But he doesn't sit there, to Brian's point, put a whole thing together. This is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to be. And we're going to invest this money here. We're going to invest this here and all that. Like, there's, I know it may seem like I'm splitting hairs, but there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference in that. And I think that, again, it'd be intellectually dishonest not to say that there is a difference in those. And I think we are being consistent in what we're saying. But again, I have my Kool-Aid. I know it.
yeah.
So I'm at least aware of my Kool-Aid.
So, okay, let's assume that GM is positive now and they're able to make electric vehicles. We just did there was a big unearthing of what's actually happening with BYD, right? They actually have a $44 billion debt that they're hiding. Independent accounting firm discovered from Singapore that BYD was hiding $44 billion of debt in supply chain financing. Let's assume, though, that all these car companies are able to make electric vehicles. The reason I titled this show, Tesla's Now Unstoppable, is because the story's now changed. It doesn't matter that they finally figured out how to become profitable in making electric vehicles. What matters now is, are you able to create an autonomous vehicle, an autonomous electric vehicle? And all these things, even if the people who say, well, all this is just Smart Summon with a bigger parking lot, it's not a big deal that Tesla's now showing you the cars driving this way. Oh, it's not a big deal that they've designed a prototype for a driverless robo-taxi. And oh, it's not a big deal that their app can now actually, you can do summon, you can actually visually see the car, you can have one single, login, and as soon as you open up any Tesla, you log into them, and automatically all your features are personalized to you. All these are just tiny things, but you add them all up and they lead to this massive lead that a company starting today, no one's shown that, they might have little pieces here and there. They cannot catch up ever. I mean, maybe you can do, Brian, go down a list of all the things that sets up Tesla for a robotaxi future, with all the things they've done with the cars and apps and networks, and ridiculously long at this point.
It is ridiculously long. I think what you said was accidentally more brilliant than you realized. It's just Smart Summon with a bigger parking lot. Yes, right. Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. Keep making the parking lot bigger until it includes the roads and the highways and the.
It's just everything. A neighborhood. It's just a city.
Well, right,
it's just a state.
Right. Once it leaves the parking lot, we're done. That's it. And so it's we're so close. I've seen people say with a straight face that Mercedes is leading because they have level 3. Mind you, it only works, a fraction of a percent of its usable life because the constrictions on it are absurd. Under 35 on the highway, a very rare situation. On a sunny day, but not too sunny, has to have a lead car.
Yeah.
So they said, well, right, that's for now. They'll just expand it. I'm like, no. The compute needed to expand it is, well, it's traffic jam assist. And that's great. But what they charge you for it is worth more than the insurance add-on that Mercedes is likely paying on the back end to cover any potential faults. And unfortunately, we've seen Blue Cruise have some crashes involving death. That is unfortunate. I haven't used it enough to know how good the monitoring system is. I've used it once on Interstate 5 here in Washington about a year ago, and it did a good job of keeping my eyes on the road, but I don't know how thorough it is. And yeah, it's not the same system. So their lead is, in the US at least, tremendous. I'm going to be doing an interview with Kyle Connor in a few days. He just got back from China where he had an opportunity to experience everyone else's versions of FSD. And I'll get a better picture then. But at least in countries where China's forbidden from operating infinitely mobile spy devices, Tesla maintains a lead.
Hey, I got a question for you. My wife asked me this. Every time we go out to dinner now, I use Summon now, right? And it blows her away. It just blows her away. Rightly so, right? Like, like we got out of the dinner and I'm pressing the button without telling her. And she's like seeing the car coming, goes, is that ours? Yeah. And it comes right up to us and we get in. And she just kept asking, like, why is this not viral? And I've been saying, right, for so long that Smart Summon in a parking lot is the best chance for it to go viral because people can see the car with nobody in it. It's driving along, in a parking lot like Target or Costco. Why has that gone viral yet? And she's like, wow. Like this is a feature that she thinks that, and rightly so again, if you have this, people will realize that this is a special car. This isn't just a car. This is a smart car. Why do you think it hasn't yet gone viral, or has it? And I'm just not seeing it per se.
I'm not seeing it. So I guess if I'm not seeing it, Nick, are you seeing it? No. So if the three of us aren't seeing it and we're following all this stuff, I don't know, maybe, yeah. I don't have a good answer for that. I think that what you just said is a good motivator for me to use it more often. Yeah, it'd be quicker to just walk to my car and not deal with the silliness of it, but I love the silliness of it. It's what I'm here for. I did.
No, I
gave
don't
it.
think it's faster to walk to the car. What have been doing now is you walk to the car while the car's coming to you.
Oh, hmm,
It's nice. I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I gave it a very, very tricky summon the other day to show it to some people, and it did not succeed. It didn't want to do the little narrow alleyway, so it just stopped over in the parking lot, blocking cars. I'm like, well, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to run
Got to
over and
run to my
rescue
car,
it.
save the
Yeah.
car. Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what else? What else has Tesla doing that is unstoppable at this point? We've talked about FSD. We're going to hear more about that. What's the next thing? The new Model Y that we just saw here. The list is massive. It's like what, 8 pages long of all the things that has been improved from the previous version. This isn't just what people are focusing on the front and the rear. It's
No,
everything.
Herbert, it's just a light facelift. I've had many very loud people tell me that
Yeah.
with absolute confidence, while ignoring that, yes, the front and back are different, and they changed a significant amount of the glass, and the entire interior is new, and the suspension has been changed, and the sound system's been changed. But other than that, what have the Romans done for us?
Yeah. What's your thinking about the new Model Y, Brian? Like, what is it
Oh,
about
what
it
do I
that's amazing? Yeah.
I haven't driven it yet, but what I am looking forward to the most is the ride improvement that we saw from the Model 3 to the Model 3 refresh happening in the Model Y. It appears that is what we're getting. A smoother, better ride all around, a quieter cabin. And it's nice that it has upgraded sound. I don't need that. It is already the best sound system I've ever had. Slightly better, I don't think would be a noticeable change in my life. And the other one is the range improvement. On paper, it's 3%, but the refresh Model 3 had the same kind of on paper improvement, and the real world improvement turned out to be substantial. So if you're going to do a long day of driving, it'd be nice to eliminate a stop or two. You can still make those stops. You just don't have to anymore. And it would just go a little bit quicker. I'm excited for it. If we get to the end of the year when my referral credits start to expire and there is no third row option, I would still consider getting one, even though it would be unnecessary in too many cars.
What's the latest numbers in China? Last I saw was 120,000 sales already in like 15 days or something like that. Do you know?
I want to say I saw 130, 140, but it doesn't matter. There's more than they can fill, more orders than they can fill. And more orders will come in. And these are just bonus orders. These are surplus orders. These don't count the orders that would normally come in during a normal cycle anyway. China will be moving at full speed probably all year without having to think about it.
This thing that they showed now, right? Simultaneous launch in 4 factories in 3 continents for one car, the Model Y, is unheard of. It's amazing that they did this. And then it sets them up, right, for future cars. They've learned how to do something like this. Again, just brilliant. How big of a deal is that? And right, how is that something that other car companies can do? Are they doing it, Brian? Do you know?
It is something, yes. Ford makes their F-150 in, I think, 4 or 5 different factories. At one point, it may have even been more. When the new model comes, they all change over at the same time. So other companies have been able to do this for a long time. Tesla didn't have some of the in-house competencies that the other guys did. We saw that with the Model S and X changeover, that it was a really brutal process. But the Model 3 changeover went quite well, and this changeover has gone even better. But a lot of it has to do with the shape of the manufacturing line. The design of the line itself is fundamentally different for the Model Y, and that's allowed them the flexibility to make old and new ones side by side on the same line. So if there are slowdowns, delays, whatever bottlenecks, fine, we'll just keep pumping out some of the older ones in between them. No loss of production. That gives me additional confidence that this year's going to be a real banger, because there won't be a substantial downtime for retooling. They can do it on the fly.
Nick, yeah, what's happening with Powell?
Oh, we got potentially some JFed news all up in this business. Yeah.
Nick, can you hear us?
He can hear us. He's listening to the news, so we will vamp for a minute.
Well, what happened? Did they cut the rates?
He's fine. Oh,
No, they did not cut rates. Yeah, I guess that's what we expected. It was pushed till March. That's right. I guess again, I'm not sure that matters anymore. Where this year is just incredible. So, what's your thoughts on the new vehicles, Brian?
on you mean the more affordable ones?
Yeah, you said you were going to
I
buy one, right?
Well, that's the thing is before the show I was saying, if the new more affordable one comes out and I can't get a third row Model Y, if I'm just buying a surplus vehicle anyway, maybe that would be the next vehicle to get. But I need to know what it is. What is it? If it's just a more affordable,
yeah.
scaled back Y that still looks like a Y, I don't need that. I've already got a nicer Y. But if it's, a whole new thing that's a different form factor, something exciting and different, then that's what I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping it is a smaller 3 or Y. I'm hoping it is something new and different. What are you hoping
Well,
for?
but you said it was a surplus vehicle for you, like so it doesn't matter to you what the
Well,
form factor is?
if I can't fit my whole family in it, then it doesn't matter which vehicle it is because
Oh, I see.
I'd still
Gotcha.
have to keep my current Model Y.
Gotcha. Because you got such a huge
Looks
family.
like we
Yeah.
got some Nick news.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so all right, so yeah, no rate cut as expected. There was, I mean, I think everything pretty much came out as expected. The loaded question that was on everybody's mind was what JP Jerome Powell would say with regards to Trump at the Davos summit, which he like zoomed into, like conference called into, where he said that he'll demand the Fed to cut rates immediately. Um, JP said that that they will continue to do their job, and they have dual mandate, whatever, and that he has not spoken to Trump yet. So I found that pretty interesting that they haven't made contact yet. And then there were a couple questions about tweaks they did. Into, they took some things out, like they took out the phrase "We have meaningfully made progress to our 2% target." They took that out, which people were like, "Oh, how should we interpret that?" And he said, like, "No, we've clearly made progress. We're just tweaking some of the words, whatever." But when it comes to the Fed statements, people analyze every little word, every little change to find signal in there. But honestly, his commentary is pretty benign. It's not bullish. It's not hawkish. It's pretty benign. So honestly, this is becoming like a nothing burger. I think if you look at, yeah, you can see Tesla's rebounding from the lows. Um, so I think the whole market's actually jumping a little bit off the lows, which gives credence that this is becoming a nothing burger. But there's still other questions to be asked, but those are the main ones that I think everybody was keeping an eye out for. So going into this Tesla, Meta, Microsoft earnings in the next couple hours, the Fed is a non-factor at the moment. However, I would caution, maybe not for long-term investors, but if you cared to know about the volatility that we're going to see in the market, I anticipate that one of two things will happen. Either one, Trump will start to make noise right after this is done because the Fed didn't cut rates, or two, which might be more palatable for the market. Scott Bessent, the new Treasury Secretary, I believe, he will right, Treasury Secretary, is that the title? I forget. Scott Bessent will kind of be the one that whispers into Jerome Powell's ear to like give him some confidence. Don't forget, like, Jerome Powell is a known Republican, so and Scott Bessent is he's different than Trump. He's not as verbose. He's not out there just he has more tact to his style, and he's really well respected. So if that becomes the avenue that we could get the Fed to say, okay, well, we can do a cut, but they just need to know, right? They need to know what the White House is going to do, what Congress is going to do, and things have to be in line. So, anyways, what I'm just saying is that not necessarily out of the woods over the next couple months. And again, right when JP is done, you might start seeing Trump tweet post, whatever it's called. So yeah, that's it. Nothing bigger at the moment.
Great. Great. Thank you for giving us that update. What's going to happen to Tesla stock? Where are you guys sitting, both of you?
Well, I always predict earnings will be a slight beat and the stock will, of course, tank. I've done pretty well with that prediction without looking at any numbers in advance. Sometimes I do provide an earnings per share estimate. This quarter I did not. My vision is sufficiently clouded. I do not have a high confidence in my estimate, so I did not provide one. It is. I've seen people say every quarter it goes down the day after. It's not every quarter. About 1 in 8, it goes the other direction. And if that's a big strategy you're going all in on, you will eventually get burned. So I always caution short-term traders to understand the risks that they're engaging in.
I have no idea. Like that's the answer. But I I think that I mean, we talked about earlier how it's all about the story that they tell on the call, and I like to believe that they had that release today of the unsupervised vehicles and taking themselves to their destinations, all that in the factory. I like to optimistically believe that that was on purpose, that they're going to start telling us more, that we're getting closer to unsupervised. Elon said it starts now. That tells me that or I hope that they're going to they're going to say some good things, some optimistic things like, no, it's not delayed. No, we're not pushing this out. We're still on track to whatever. And I think it'll be enough to get a lot of momentum back in the stock over the
Yeah.
next weeks. Maybe not right after earnings, but Tesla is historically known for like it takes like a week or two. I mean, even after the cyber or the We Robot event, it took like 3 weeks before the stock started moving. 3 weeks. It was insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So sentiment can change at any moment. So who knows what will happen? But when I look at it, so the most important thing is like, is there optimism for the economy in general? Is there money? Is there risk on? Are people deciding to invest? Are people deciding to invest in AI companies? And there's that weird scenario that happened with DeepSeek, right? But in terms of Tesla, it's a good year. There's so many things that they've laid out for the year that even if one thing is down, didn't happen in time, there's, the next 2 months, there's always something new, right? We just had the Model Y release came out. We're going to continue to get these FSD updates. We're going to now waiting forward to the new model vehicles. And then when that comes out, we're waiting for the smaller Cybertruck. Then we'll be waiting for, the commercialized robo-taxi. Like the entire year, the schedule is so full of things. You just wait, and then there's like the next thing and the next thing. So that might bolster the kind of excitement that people have about this and start to switch people's minds to understand that this is the one company that's actually delivering and has a tremendous pipeline.
Even if we just look at what is absolutely known, we've got Cybertruck ramp this year. We've got Cybertruck rear-wheel drive. That's been choreographed by the certification for the IRA credit. We've got the Semi. We've got the robot, which is being used inside of Tesla factories. We've got and Megafactory Shanghai. These are all things that are known, established, and happening. If that alone isn't enough to get you excited, good news, we've got all the other things coming too. But, those, I think some people will need to see more before they definitely believe them.
Yeah. So are you seeing more and more people understanding Tesla? So we've started to see for the first time just last week, Piper Sandler actually used the words robotics AI company. We've seen 2 or 3 institutional analysts start to say that they are recognizing that Tesla's got a bot, program, and I think one of them actually is now modeled it out. None of them have yet added into their price targets, except for somebody like Dan Ives, who knows that it's coming and he will do some sort of probability to it. but few people are. But more and more are talking about it, like you were saying, Nick. So
My
this is the year.
struggle, my struggle is that I'm in the bubble, and everyone I know already knows almost as much as I do, sometimes more than I do. So when I get outside my bubble and talk to people in the real world, it's very weird to me because they don't know that giant rockets are being caught by chopsticks. They don't know that cars are driving themselves. They don't know that it tests $80,000 for the base model. So I don't know, man. I got to get out more.
I don't. I think less than 1% of people know about FSD. I there's such little, like, I think Tesla will. I don't know. As much as I love that they kind of go against the grain and don't advertise or anything like that, I would love to see something like a Super Bowl at something. Like just something. I mean, as long as it's done well, obviously, but I think you would see adopt FSD jump through the roof. But I think they've intentionally not want to do that. I think they don't want to. I could be wrong, but I don't think that they want to really advertise it until they're ready, until it's unsupervised. And then I think once you get to that point, it's like, well, do we need to advertise it? Let's just start launching cybercabs. Like, people will figure it out.
I think Nick is right. I think that is one that is so big that there no ads needed. It's like Cybertruck, no ads needed. I said before it was released, we don't need ads because every local news channel in the country will run a very softball piece for the first one they see in person where they know a guy who will let them. And sure enough, we saw that every channel. Look at this weird beast in town and it's electric. Very easy story to make. And the cybercabs are going to be, they're not going to be sitting around waiting for people to figure out that they can be used. And if they are, run an ad until then. And you could do very local, very targeted ads to get that word out. I just don't think, I agree with Nick. I don't think it's going to be necessary.
Well, then that means you have to wait until it's mass production next year. It is weird. No?
No, you just need to wait for cyber or for unsupervised FSD where we can actually just have a network and then you can start. And again, production starts this year. So
I guess the pushback against that, Nick, is that you've got Waymo and you've got Cruise that are already available in multiple cities. And my wife did not know that was happening. These are driverless cars. You can actually order them, pay for them, get in one. So Tesla doing it in
different.
A couple states, is that enough to go viral, globally?
Well, yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think there are more people outside the United States that know about FSD than people in the States.
Boy, I just don't have a good barometer on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be like Uber. Like, once people can actually start to like use it.
Yeah.
Like, here's the problem with Waymo and Cruise and all that is that it's in such a small area. It's so It's like you got all these gotchas. Well, you can't go here. Well, it's not going to take highways. Well, it's actually going to cost a little more, but you have to download this specific app. I mean, like, it's all these things, right? But once, like, it's like anything. Like, just once the kids start using it, once the younger generation starts using it, it's it. It's over. Like, it's going to go wildfire.
I think what I'll agree with you is like Waymo and Cruise, people don't realize how many cars do they have? How many cars total?
Like 800?
800, 700, 800, but actually let's assume it's 1,000 because it was 800 just a few months ago. And let's assume it's 1,000. Let's assume it's 2,000. And then, by the way, they just announced they're going to launch in 10 cities, 2025. And then when you drill closer, they just did it this morning, 10 cities. When you drill closer, you find out that no, what that means is that they're going to send 5 to 10 cars to 10 cities. And it doesn't mean that they're a commercialized program. It just means that they're going to, and it doesn't mean it's autonomous, by the way. It's like drivers driving them just to map it out. We've had Waymo driving around Seattle for so long, a couple of years now. And
forever.
The program, Yeah, and it's not a program that they're launched here. But the point is they have 1,000 cars. And so it's still very much a pilot. Now, if Tesla comes out and it's an actual Uber level solution service, an Uber level, right? I think you would have to have, I don't know, I'll throw out some number, 5 to 10,000. I think there was a James Dalma analysis that in Chicago, if you just had 10,000, there's 10,000 Ubers. Is that right? Those numbers seem high, but you don't need that many, but you need way more than 1,000 to actually become competitive. And then that becomes that is something that people will now know everywhere if they're doing it in one city.
Ubers are also part-time. Even a full-time driver is only driving a third of the time. So multiple, and some drivers only do a few hours here and there as needed or when they're available or when they're bored. So it could be, you would only need a quarter as many. And one thing that was pointed out to me earlier today that I thought was fantastic is just from driving end of line to the delivery area, Tesla's going to rack up 1 million, 2 million miles of FSD training per year. That's more than a lot of the competitors get out in the real world. And so the benefits just keep piling up.
Okay.
We should mention what we're up to in a half hour, Herbert. You want to mention that?
Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that. So 12:30, we're going to have a big group come in. We're going to do live earnings call. We're going to do a pre-show. We're going to actually show you the actual drop so it starts at 12:30 at 1 p.m. Pacific time. They will drop. Tesla will share the actual financials for the earnings. We'll take a look at that. And then at 2:30 Pacific time, that's when they actually do the call. And we'll do that, and we'll do a post show as well. So come back into either Brian's channel or my channel. We're going to do a live stream of the earnings call. Wonderful.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to have the greatest guests in the world. It's going to be...
No, honestly, it's
Alexandra
great
Mertz
panel.
will be there. Jeff Lutz, Cern Basher.
James from Invest Answers.
Yeah, so many great
Big
people.
panel.
I
Thanks,
didn't get
everybody.
invite everybody, so you guys can catch me as far as Farzad Hans. We're the rejects.
Yeah, right. All right, man. See you guys later. Bye, everybody.